Downtown Elizabethton is an absolute hotbed for antiques and just cool shops in general. On this one main street, there are 5 to 6 different antique stores, all of which are awesome, and I loved visiting them. However, none of them had any pianos, and when I asked the people at the store if they knew of any pianos in Elizabethton, they all went, So I decided to continue exploring downtown Elizabethton, and as I was walking by this building, I happened to look in the door, and I saw a piano, and I got very excited. And then I walked in the lobby, and I found 2 pianos. Not 1, but 2, and this is one of them. This is a Stro cabinet grand from apparently the late 1800s, about 1898 or so, which is impressive. For a piano that old, the fact that it still exists, and the fact that it still plays as well as it does is honestly incredible. For a piano that is well over 100 years old, it plays remarkably well. Obviously it's out of tune, and obviously it is imperfect, but it's 130 years old, and it's mostly original. We'll take a look at the inside in a bit and show you the parts that people have replaced, but they're not even the most crucial parts. The parts that move, the parts that make the sound, the strings, most of the action, all of that is still original, which is incredible. The fact that it still works at all is a testament to the people who built this piano and the quality of this piano when it was new. This instrument has been refinished, which I think is why it looks as nice as it does. I'll show you some close-ups later on of the beautiful, intricate woodwork here that is just magnificent. There's mother-of-pearl inlay, there's all sorts of other types of woods inlaid with each other. I don't know how many years someone would have to study that craft to be able to do that this beautifully, but it's magnificent and is a truly gorgeous piano. Although this piano is currently more or less abandoned, sitting in the lobby of a building in downtown, someone once really liked this piano, and someone may still really like this piano. I'm not sure. I believe it does have a current owner. The piano was refinished at one point. The pedals and the kick plate were sent off to be re-nickeled, so they are nice and shiny and they look brand new, which is a very nice touch, and several components on the inside of the piano were meticulously replaced, which is a sign that somebody cared for this piano and did some attempts to restore it back to its former glory, which is very nice to see. The fact that somebody put any amount of love into this piano at all is an incredible start, because so many of these beautiful old pianos just get thrown away or abandoned or given away for free on Facebook Marketplace, only to end up in the dump a few weeks later when people realize, oh, it weighs like 600, 700 pounds. These pianos are magnificent when they are in their fully restored state. Hopefully someday I'll be able to find a fully restored cabinet grand to make a video on, but for now, this is what we have, and honestly, it's pretty cool. One thing I love about these old antique pianos from the turn of the century is the sheer scale of them. They're massive. They're built like wooden tanks. This giant front panel here that can come off and that I will remove genuinely needs 2 people to be removed, at least for small people like you and me. This panel is massive. The top of it here is that thick at the top, which is crazy. It's made of this giant slab of wood, and pianos like this, of this size and this scale and this magnitude, will probably be never made again here in the United States. Taking off the front panel of this piano is a 2-person job, but now that it is removed, we can see the inside of the action. Several components in here have been replaced. If we look here, we can notice that this one little part here has been replaced, so something was wrong with it and they swapped it out for most likely a used part from a donor piano, because it is considerably more weathered and patinaed than all of the other components in the piano. We can see that the hammers here look surprisingly fresh and new. They certainly are not new anymore, but I definitely think they are not original to the piano and that they were replaced some time ago. The dampers have also been replaced, not the wooden damper body, but the felt, the important part, has been replaced, and it works pretty well. A lot of these old pianos will have ringing dampers that allow the strings to continue vibrating even after you've let go of the note. If anything, this piano has the opposite problem. You may have noticed that my phrasing was a little bit weird, particularly in the Graceful Ghost rag. That's just because some of the dampers probably aren't regulated correctly and are touching the strings a little bit too much, because there were some weird sustain problems. Some of the most crucial parts in this piano related to the production of sound are original. The strings appear to be original. If they are not, they were replaced like 70 years ago, and the majority of the action appears to be original. The bridle straps are all fresh and new and clean, and like I mentioned, the hammers and dampers appear to be replaced, and there is that one component here. Everything else appears to be original, and the fact that it still works from the late 1800s is very impressive. The serial number of this piano is 7436, which, according to what we were able to find online, dates this piano, again, around 1898, which feels very, very old. Looking at this piano, I would have expected it to be maybe 1900s, maybe 1910, but 1898 is what it says. The reason it just feels newer than that date is just because of the modernity of the inside design. You have a traditional, essentially a modern upright piano action. You have a full frame harp, that's this big metal cast iron piece here that goes all the way up to the top of the piano, all the way across. In some earlier pianos, you didn't even have one of those, and there's an intermediate period where you had small, flimsy frames that didn't cover the entire pen block and things like that. So, to me, this is a very stout piano from the era, and is essentially a modern upright, although it certainly looks and sounds a little bit different than modern pianos do. Speaking of its sound, let's evaluate the tone of this piano. One of the biggest issues, of course, this piano has is that it's out of tune. That can be fixed. One of the other core problems that this piano has in terms of its tone is that the low bass strings are tubby sounding. If you listen to them, they don't sound vibrant and powerful like a new piano's bass strings would. Looking at them, I honestly don't think the strings are original from 1898. They were probably replaced like 50 to 70 years ago. However, the bass strings on many old pianos will sound tubby like that as dirt and grime builds up in the copper windings of the strings and just causes them to lose their energy. There are two ways to fix this. One is to replace those bass strings, and the other is to have a piano tuner loosen the tension on all of them and give each one like a half twist and then re-tension the string, and that kind of tightens up the coils and just makes things work a little bit better for a while. It's more of a temporary fix, a band-aid fix, but it certainly can breathe new life into a piano for a bit longer. Looking at the bottom half of this piano, we can uncover some more of its secrets. First of all, we can discover that it has several relatively long soundboard cracks. We've got one down here. This one is not quite a crack yet, but it's imperfect. We've got a couple of minor ones here, and then we've also got another long one right here. These soundboard cracks, most piano technicians will tell you to not worry about them unless they are actively buzzing or causing the piano's tone to be terrible. In this piano's current condition, I can't really evaluate whether or not the soundboard is causing the piano to have a bad tone. There are some inconsistencies from note to note, but I think most of those are damper problems and regulation issues and not tone. But I could be wrong. The piano appears to have decent sustain, which is the main killer in soundboard issues. So if you have a piano with horrible sustain in one octave or so, then you'll have soundboard issues. Not necessarily noticing that in this piano, which is a good sign. The bigger issue that this piano has is down here in the bass bridge. If we take a look here, let me find the exact spot. Yeah, right here. If we take a look here, we can see that there is a very pretty wide crack that spreads across a good portion of this bass bridge. This also is probably contributing to the reason why the bass strings sound the way that they do. When you have these cracks that cause the pins to get loose, it can definitely affect the tone. You can, I think, even see how this one string right here is starting to straighten out. They all are supposed to have these bends in them, right? They bend around this pin and then they bend around that pin. But this one is starting to just kind of become straight because it's tearing these pins through the wooden bridge, and it is slowly destroying the sound of the bass end of the piano. The good news is, however, that because this is a real piano made of wood and metal and things that can be replaced and repaired, this is fixable. It is entirely fixable, and if you had a competent piano rebuilder replace just the bridge, it would last for probably another 50 years, and that's being very, very conservative. It would probably last more like another 100. That was impressive that it could even do that, because this action is old and worn out and quite sloppy, but it can still hold its own, which is pretty impressive. I also want to take a moment to talk about the size of this piano, the sheer size of it. It is a very tall piano. I don't have a tape measure on me, so I can't measure it, but it's probably 54 inches tall, if not taller. These old antique pianos went by a few different names. They were marketed often as cabinet grands because they're kind of shaped like a cabinet. Some of them even had cabinet shelves in them. The other name that people will use for these is vertical grand, and there's a lot of controversy about the legitimacy of that name, vertical grand. A lot of pianists and piano technicians mostly will argue that there is no such thing as a vertical grand, that it is not correct to call a piano like this a vertical grand, and they have some points. A piano like this certainly does not sound the same as a grand piano. It never will. However, the reason that people argue that you can call these pianos vertical grands is because of the length of the strings. The bass strings are terminated up here at one end, and they go down, 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 through the piano, through here, and then they come here, right? So they go all the way down here, and then they are terminated down here at this end. This length of string is roughly equivalent to what you would find in a baby grand piano, in a small to medium-sized grand piano. And as a result, when these pianos are new, when they have fresh bass strings and good hammers, the bass end on them is incredible. They sound amazing. I really want to find a restored one of these to do a video on again. But I've played them in the past, and they are remarkable instruments. They have incredible tone quality, and I think it's because of that that I will refer to these pianos often as vertical grands. They are absolute beasts of upright pianos, and just merely calling them, oh, it's just an upright piano, I think kind of takes a little bit away from the sheer scale of what this piano was at the time, and still is today. You've seen the carvings on the front of the piano, the beautiful mother-of-pearl inlays and the various different wood types that have been inlaid into the piano. Those are beautiful, and they are pretty standard on older pianos. It is very common to see carvings of some type on the front panel of old pianos. It was also very funny to me how elaborate and big and heavy this top panel was, and the bottom panel is of quality, of course. It's made of nice wood, but in comparison, it feels very cheap. It's very light, very simple, very basic. Anyway, sidetrack. What I want to talk to you about is the carving that is here on this side of the piano. I don't usually see upright pianos with carvings on the side. Maybe I just never noticed them. Maybe this is more common than I think it is. But having a carving like this on the side of the piano, somebody had to do this by hand. Somebody had to do all of this by hand. And that was expensive back in the day. And it's a sign that this piano was, when it was brand new, extremely expensive. But this isn't where the carvings in unusual places stop. If we look at the back of the piano, the part that goes against the wall that no one's ever gonna see, they put carvings there too, that no one's ever gonna see. Why would they even bother to do that? That's a sign that this piano was incredibly high quality. It was a luxury item. It was expensive. It was luxurious. And that's part of the reason it's lasted 130 years. Partly because people have replaced and refurbished elements of the piano, but also just because it was stupidly well made. It was stupidly well made. And I really like this piano. We can also look at the back of the piano here, the sheer size of these beams. You know, this is all probably old growth wood that does not exist anymore. This piano is a beast. And it's amazing. So although this piano is not in perfect condition anymore, I hope you can tell that this once was, and arguably still is, a piano of incredible quality. The fact that it has lasted over 120 years is a testament to how well it was built back in the 1890s, and it can still live another 100 or 200 years if it is cared for properly. And so I wanted to put a message out to the owner of this piano. I believe there is an owner to this piano. If you see this room, this area, while it is nice to have a piano in a public space to play, this is not the type of area that a piano should be in. The reason for that is because this appears to be an untreated, unregulated environment, right? There is no air conditioning, there is no heat, there is no humidity control. And while I like to say that pianos are made of wood and metal and that's why they can be repaired, pianos are made of wood and metal and they're very susceptible to changes in humidity. Last night we had some epic summer thunderstorms, and so today it is incredibly humid. It is very hot in this room. All of my camera equipment is overheating. My camera operator is overheating. I am overheating. It's very hot in here and very humid. In the wintertime, it's gonna be dry as a bone in here, most likely. And that is terrible for these pianos. The relatively small issues that this piano has, like the soundboard cracks, which aren't really that small, will only get worse with time. It is clear that someone in the past, whether it's the current owner or a previous owner, loved this piano. They wouldn't have refinished it. They wouldn't have put new dampers on it. They wouldn't have put new hammers, new bridle straps, maybe new strings 50 years ago. They wouldn't have done that to this piano if they didn't like it. Please preserve this piano. It is beautiful. It will never be made again. You may not have ever heard of the Stro piano company, but back in the day, it was clearly a pretty quality piano. And it still can be a pretty quality piano if it is cared for properly. So while I am a massive proponent of pianos in public and unusual spaces, I also want to see pianos that were extremely high quality to be cared for properly. So if this piano gets moved into a humidity controlled environment such as someone's house, that would be far better for the piano in the long run and would be far better for piano preservation as a whole. I don't know how effective a humidifier is when the piano is outdoors. When it is inside a home and the level of humidity fluctuation is not that much considering, it's great. But when the piano is essentially outdoors, the front doors of the shop are left open a lot of the time. When it's practically outside and is, you know what I'm saying? When it has those huge humidity fluctuations, I don't know how effective a damp chaser system would be. Piano technicians, sound off in the comments, let me know, would a humidifier system be enough to allow this piano to remain here and be preserved and not let its problems worsen? Because again, those humidity problems are only gonna make those soundboard cracks get worse. They're only gonna make that bridge crack get worse, which is probably one of the biggest problems this piano has, and it's only gonna make the already old and already tired action components wear out even faster as the wood swells and shrinks and the metal remains exactly where it is. Things get loose and sloppy. So the metal gets warped, not warped, but the metal does change shape a little bit in the temperature, and the wood changes shape a lot in the humidity, and that is what causes the premature death of so many pianos. This is 130 years old. It's lived a long, good life. We shouldn't let it die just yet. It can live on more. On the other side of this public lobby space is this beautiful piano, which is a Star. The serial number is 56814, and that dates it to around 1904-1905. And although it does not exude the quality of the upright piano on the other side of the room, it is still a beautiful looking piano, and I honestly think it really enhances this space. Like, aesthetically, it looks fantastic here. And that is, unfortunately, kind of the best this piano is probably ever going to be, is a beautiful piece of furniture. The Star piano brand at this time was not the upper echelon of the piano industry. This would have been a more middle-class piano, something that isn't terrible, something that isn't incredible, just a middle-of-the-road piano that a church can buy, that a house can buy. You could put it in your parlor, you could have it in your church. It's just a piano. It's a bog standard instrument from the early 1900s. And in that regard, it is not special. But in that regard, it is also kind of special because all of those pianos are the types that would be thrown away. When I was exploring Elizabethton looking for pianos exactly a week ago today, I discovered this piano. I saw it when I was walking by on the street. And I asked some of the tenants about why there's two pianos in this public lobby. And while the upright piano does have some semblance of an owner and people do care for it, this one had appeared that day. No one knew where it came from. It just materialized. It appeared here. And it is very strange for a piano, a large, heavy object that requires a team of people to move it, to just be abandoned in a public space. And although I think it looks great here, it really does enhance the space and make it feel more alive and nice. That is the ultimate fate of so many pianos of this caliber from this era. Remember, this was not a top-of-the-line piano. This was a middle-range instrument. And it's instruments like that that do not age particularly well, that people do not find to be special, and that they will get rid of. And someday all of these pianos are gone. Someday these pianos all will be gone. They will all die, decompose, and be thrown away. What we found in an old catalog from the era is that we believe this to be their minim grand piano. That was the name that they gave it. This was before the times when we had the term baby grand. I actually forget when that term became a thing, but in the early turn of the century, 1900, that term did not exist, and so they had all manner of different words to describe a relatively short grand piano. I don't have a tape measure on me, so I don't know exactly how long it is, and the catalog was like an old, blurry, low-resolution picture, so they didn't have a dimensions on there that I could read. But it's roughly 5.5, 6 feet long, not a terribly large piano, not a terribly small piano. Again, just a very average piano, an average-sized piano of an average build quality. It's like literally nothing special. So why am I making a video on it? Well, because it's here, and because it's cool that there's old pianos just chilling out in the middle of Elizabethton. Nobody knew this was here. All of the antique stores, this is an antique, it's from 1900. All of the antique stores I went and talked to, nobody knew that there were any pianos in downtown Elizabethton. And so it's really fun to be able to explore and find things that nobody else knows are here, even if it is sad and broken and probably will die a sad and slow death. Because of the condition and quality of this piano, it's not as big of a deal to leave it in here. It already has lots of problems. It would be nice to fix some of the issues and allow it to be playable, but the sound of little children bonking on a piano all day would probably annoy the tenants of this building. Let's talk about some of the large and obvious problems that this piano has. Namely, it has a sign on it that says, "Please do not touch the piano." Why could that be? Well, there's any number of reasons. One is it's terribly out of tune, and I will obey the sign and not touch the piano, but off camera, I may or may not have touched the piano to find out that it is very out of tune. It is not playable. Like, the action works, and if you tuned it, it would probably be okay. But as it sits right now, it's not playable, so I'm not gonna bother. So that's probably one reason, because it sounds horrible. The other reason is because it has allegedly a broken leg. They have some kind of a glass thing here wrapped up like an Asian pear to help hold this on the piano. But we have a little cardboard sign, broken leg. And this broken leg, I inspected it. It's this one over here. And from what I'm able to tell, it's really not that broken. I was expecting it to have like a giant crack down the middle, or to be like misaligned on the piano, or for the piano to be teeter-tottering and balancing on two legs and ready to fall over at any moment. It's not. It's fine. Like, the piano is solid as it sits right now. The problem is there is a little latch right here that I guess helps secure the leg in the piano. I can just grab this latch and turn it. It doesn't really feel incredibly useful, but it does have a tension point in the middle where it braces up against the bottom of the piano, and that helps keep that leg in place. That latch is missing on this leg, and I think that is the reason that the leg says broken. This piece could be remanufactured, it could be taken from a donor piano, it can be reinstalled on the piano, and that leg could be fixed. That's why I like old acoustic pianos. You can fix dang near every single part on them, and sometimes it takes a bit of money and time, but other times it just takes a little bit of woodworking and some elbow grease. So that problem, most likely, unless there's something deeper that I'm missing, isn't that big of a problem and could be fixed by the right person. However, this piano's problems do not end there. There are numerous bridge cracks across the piano, as well as several soundboard cracks, which makes sense. It's in an untreated environment, and those cracks have probably been there a long time. But the bridge cracks especially, there's a couple of really nasty ones in there, and those will affect the tone of the piano as the bridge pins get moved out of their original position, and the string straightens, and just things go awry. That affects the tone of the piano, and again, that can be replaced, that can be fixed. But for a piano like this, that was, again, an average-sized piano of an average build quality, no one's gonna bother to drop several $1,000s on this piano to replace it. As much as I love restoring old pianos, if I had the money, I'm not even sure that I would. It's just an average piano of an average build quality. And while I absolutely would encourage someone to do so, if you have money you just want to throw away and restore an old piano like this, go for it. There's nothing wrong with doing so. But it wouldn't really make a lot of financial sense. You wouldn't end up with a very valuable piano. It's not something rare. It's not something unusual. It is a very average piano of the time. That in itself is something interesting to be preserved, to see what an average piano of the 1900s was like. And it would be very interesting to see what the horrible pianos of the 1900s were like, because surely they existed, right? Like, terrible pianos are made today, extremely low budget, horribly crafted pianos from across the seas are made today. And surely, back in the 1900s, there were low-end manufacturers of pianos in America, right? Like, there just had to be. There had to be awful pianos made 100 years ago. And it would be very fun to see one of those, to see how it has aged, and also to restore it to its factory condition, and to see just how horrible it was when it was new, because all pianos sound horrible when they're out of tune and don't play very well. I hope you've enjoyed this video of me finding two random pianos in downtown Elizabethton. They are two very different pianos with very different backstories, origins, lore. They have very different lore, but they are both two pianos that ended up in the same place, and I think that's really cool. I love finding pianos in random places, especially when nobody in town knows that they were even here, so that was really cool. I want to give a special shout out and thank you to several of the tenants in the building here who have been kind and helped give information about these pianos. The folks here at the Jack of All Art Trade store were awesome, and it's a very cool art store. I think they're moving out of this building soon, so they might not be here if you come and visit. There's also the Teal & Company boutique here, who the owner just showed up today, and we asked her if she knew where this piano came from as well. She also said that it appeared magically. There's also the Pedal & Pines boutique and children's resale here just down the hall, which is an open business that you can visit and buy things from. So if you're in Elizabethton, come here and check out things and visit businesses, talk to people. It's very fun. So once again, thank you to the various tenants of the building who were very kind and polite and patient with me while I bothered them about piano questions. Thank you to you, the viewers, who make videos like this possible by watching, commenting, and subscribing. Thank you all very much. I will go find more pianos in downtown Elizabethton, because these are not the only two. There's two more that I know of, so let's go out and go find those. You'll see them in future videos. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I'll see you in the next video with another cool piano.